We have, what's the plan is, we have lecture of maybe max of 1 hour, and then followed by your presentation and followed by your test. Okay? Your test, 50% of your test marks and 50% of your presentation will be your final evaluation for your grade cards. So this is the schedule for tomorrow, but so we were just discussing, we'll start at 10, finish off your presentation and this one, and afternoon will be test, or we'll finish everything and then wind up before lunch so that you're free in the afternoon. Which option do you prefer? Wind up by afternoon. So, but only challenge is you have to come at 9:30, not 10 o'clock. I mean, 9 is also fine. Yeah, I mean, he would be ready at 8:30 and he'll be messaging me, book my Uber. So
That's 9:30.
yeah, 9:30 is better. So 9:30 will start, and 12:30 we should be done.
It's only my son is not ready, you know, that's the problem.
Yeah. So 12:30 will be done, and so that we can go home. And because we are having celebration dinner today, so tomorrow we are skipping lunch. So you can go home and have your lunch rather than here. Fine? Thanks a lot.
All right, so that sounds like a plan, right? So we are almost done. We see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So a quick one again on the cases, the image-guided therapy cases. What we I'm starting with the burning problem again. You have a breast tumor, women's breast, maybe 6 or 7 millimeters in diameter. How do you treat it? What do? You typically take a biopsy, and then you decide on what to do. There will be a surgery done. And what we thought, that was a very difficult process. Why don't we actually try to get the tumor out while we do the biopsy? We have to do the biopsy anyway. And to be really honest, if there's something with 6 or 7 millimeters in there, on whether it's benign or malignous, it doesn't really matter. It should not be there. So while we're there, why don't we just think about taking this tumor out at one time and do the biopsy later just to confirm? Because if you know it's a malignant tumor, you would do a different afterwards treatment than with the benign tumor, but get it out. So to do that, we actually thought about an access pathway. Maybe I'll show this one here. So what we designed is a device where we put a 4 millimeter needle inside the breast, go directly to the tumor, then open it up, and then you have plates right here. These plates, see in the middle there? And these plates would basically start carving the tumor out. You would put it further, then the diameter would increase, you would carve more out. You have that combined with a mechanism to suck the tissue in and suck it out, so it's combined with a suction device. And you would also be able to do ultrasound imaging on it here. So the process is you identify the tumor with the ultrasound, you stick the needle in, you start actually turning, get the tumor out, and be done. And we built a prototype. This prototype, unfortunately, does not look like this because it's very complicated, mechanically very complicated. But the burning problem was that we wanted to get the woman's trauma reduced by not having to go imaging, then biopsy, then therapy. We wanted to just do that at one process. Because when a woman, that's at least our understanding, when a woman is there and get a mammography screen done and you say, there may be something wrong, you may have to come back in 2 weeks to get a biopsy. She lives in fear for 2 weeks. And when you then have done the biopsy, she lives in another 2 weeks of fear, knowing what the results were. And then you do the therapy process. Once you have the lady at the point where you said, should we do a biopsy right away? We believe that 90% would say, yeah, do it right away. Done, right? And you shorten the time of uncertainty. So this is the purpose behind that. I have to honestly admit that our prototype, this is a minimal viable prototype. It shows, I think you hopefully understood what I discussed in relatively short words. We made some drawings. The prototype itself is not that promising yet, so we have to work on it. But I think we'll get it done so that will actually be usable also for other types of tumors that are reachable through a needle incision. Okay, Now we'll go to the business model canvas. So now we have talked a little bit about financing. We talked a little bit about entrepreneurship. I'm going to show you how you actually create a business plan from what you have already provided here. This is called the business model canvas. The business model canvas, if you go to, and Abhishek, you may be able to confirm this, you go to anywhere in the US to go to these classes, you always have the business model canvas. This is like the most important tool that you'll use to actually describe a project, describe a process, describe an entrepreneurial effort. So what is it? So with this one here, use it for your project if you can. And you don't have to be right, because the good thing about these value proposition canvas and business model canvas is you use sticky notes or you use removable labels, and you have an initial idea, and when you try to verify that idea and you find out it's wrong, you take it off and put a new one on. Rather than writing a complete new business plan, you have a visual description of what your business could look like. So this is the business model canvas. Typically, we started before saying about the right side and the left side, but everything is centered around the value proposition. So what is so cool about your idea? What do you really offer a customer? What is the great thing that you want to market? My device is doing this compared to all the other stupid devices that are around. Second most important question, who is actually my customer? I need to know my customer. In this one, in contrast to the value proposition canvas, you can put all the customers on. My customer is the radiologist, the pharmaceutical, the patient, whatever. And then you may be able to color code the value propositions. The red ones are to the radiologist, the blue ones are for the patients, the yellow ones are for whoever. So you can have all the value propositions for the different customer segments on there. Another thing is, how do you actually get to the customer, the channel? What's my access pathway to the customer? Do I have to privately talk to them? Do we have a connection via iTunes because they download my program? What is my connection? How do I actually get to the customer? And what is my relationship to the customer? Do I know the customer because I'm a doctor and it's a doctor-patient relation? Is it a relation that is maybe with respect to an offering from a hospital? Is it connected to monitoring from the, what is my relation? On the left side, you see things that I need to get the whole thing done. So who are my key partners in this project? Key partners are an electronic company that helped me design the board. Maybe I need to have Amazon services to provide me with a web space. What are my key activities? What do I need to get done? I need to get the algorithm programmed. I need to get the software installed. I need to create a graphical user interface. What are my main steps to get it done? And what are the resources that I need for that? I need software engineers. I need a patent. What do I need to do this? So now I've already described how do I get to the customer, who is my customer, and what needs to get done on the left side. What do I need to have available to actually get this all in place? This is half a business plan. Who and what do I need? And now what's another important thing in the business plan is obviously what does the whole thing cost me? And cost is typically associated with the left side because the resources, the activities I have to have money for. And on the revenue side, on the right side, which is associated with the customer, how do I actually make money? And if you put some labels on this one, this is a business plan. So, some examples. What is the business model canvas of Google? What's the value proposition of Google? So it's, by the way, it's not only used, you can use this business model canvas not only to present your own idea, but to evaluate existing businesses, to see how they actually create business. So what is the value proposition of Google? Why use Google? I do have to speak louder. Searching. You want to find something, right? finding things. It's a big value proposition. Why do you use Google? Who is the competition of Google? Most of us don't even know one. Yeah, but most of us don't. Why do you use Google instead of Bing? One of the things as a value proposition is if you can't find it on Google, it's probably not there. Right? Is that what you think? But if it's there on Google, I mean, if you find something, you must find it on Google. That's kind of like the thinking process, right? You search, you find, you get information. So this is the main value proposition, right? That's why you use Google. You use Google everywhere. You need to find things. So who's the customer? Everyone. But there's a big distinction. There's two different types of groups of customers. Everybody who sits in this room is one description. And then you have to think a little forward. How does Google make money? Ads. So you have as a customer companies that actually give you ads. What's the channel? How do you connect with Google? A bar on your screen where you type in something. This is your connection. It's your channel. What do you think Google needs on the left side? Massive computers. Huge algorithmical background. I mean, this very little, tiny little channel you have comes with AI programs that evaluate what you really want to say, because you can formulate questions. You can actually talk to, hey, Google, give me this and this and that, right? Talk to Siri, or it's the same thing, right? Siri is then connected to Google again, so it's all weird. So what do you need? You need all kinds of infrastructure. You need tons of software programmers. And you need also maybe some salespeople for the ads. But do you really need that? Probably not. So what does the business model look like? You have now, I have two customers now. The green one is the normal customer, everybody who sits in this room. And I have the red customer, who's the advertisers, the companies who actually make the advertisement. So at the end of the day, you're looking for something, free search and find. And you actually are clearly addressing everybody. This everybody is paying how much? Nothing. So from nothing, Google cannot live. Nothing is not a good value proposition. So they have also the advertisers. Why do advertisers actually go and give Google money? What's the key? Number of users. Because if there would be only this group here sitting here, nobody would give you advertising because there's no value in here. But if you have billions of users, and you have realized that already when you put down price for Nike blah 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 shoes, then you will get 17 results or 75 results, and for the next 5 days you will get always something blind in, hey, Nike is on sale, Nike is on sale, Nike is on sale. Because you already have been selected by Google as somebody who's interested in Nike shoes. And that's what the advertiser is valuing. So the business model of Google is basically giving out a lot of free things, getting you all attached to their business model, and by having many users, being a good advertising platform. And that's how they make money. 99.9% of the users do not pay anything. 0.1% of the users pay something, and Google is one of the most profitable companies in the world. And now you understand why Instagram was bought. Because Instagram had 800 billion users they came with. And in the meantime, probably billions of users they came with. So the value today is very much into the number of users again. Or you have to rethink who is the value, who provides the value. Okay, what is the business model of Nespresso? Everybody knows Nespresso, right? Does Nespresso make coffee machines? No. They don't make coffee machines. Who makes the coffee machines? Siemens, Krups, whoever. And when you buy a coffee machine, like you have the option of buying a normal coffee machine for 350 euros, and then you get a really, really good Siemens one for Nespresso for 50 euros. Which one do you buy, or possibly buy? The 50 one. Do you know that this is a highly subsidized price? Siemens probably charges Nespresso 250 euros for that. But what happens when you buy this hardware? What can you put in? Only Nespresso tablets. So by buying this hardware, you kind of like connect it and attach to that Nespresso business model. You have to buy the coffee from them. How does Nespresso actually sell you the coffee? Are there stores? Actually, in the meantime, there are some stores, but let's assume you don't know that there are some stores. How would you buy Nespresso? It's on the internet. You have an internet connection. You actually go there, and then you say, well, last time you ordered this and this and that. You want to order this again? Yes. And then you get the package. It's really cool. It comes next day. And they always throw in a couple of extra ones. Like the new ones, they use it as a marketing tool too. And you think, oh, that's really kind of cool. They give me something for free. And then you try it out, and you add attach more, and you pay more for the coffee than if you're regular. You know that. I mean, everybody knows that who uses Nespresso. But why do you use Nespresso as a user? So what's the value proposition of Nespresso? How much work do you have with this coffee machine and with this coffee? How much work? None. Fill the water, that's it. Now, next thing is, how quick does it go? Pretty much instantaneous. You turn it on, it takes a minute maybe, max. So when you have a coffee, turn on, done. You have a fancy espresso machine at home, you know how long it takes? Half an hour, lots of work. Coffee fill in, put the pressure up. It takes a lot of time. So you really need to want espresso, and you need to be willing to invest that much time. What is another value proposition of Nespresso? Today I feel green. You take the green tablet, tomorrow the red one, then the white with the red dots on it, whatever. There's always a saying. You have a variety, and the variety is very easy. Variety, ease of use, it's relatively inexpensive investment. There's a lot of other value propositions. How does Nespresso make money? Selling the tablets. Do they have stores? Do they have expenses for service and repair costs in the coffee machines? No, that's Siemens and Krupp's. They have a great business model. You know who owns Nespresso? Does anybody know? It's a company called Nestle. Nestle is one of the largest food companies in the world. I don't exactly know. I mean, some of the numbers I make up now, so don't Google them and say I was wrong. But just going to give you an example. Nestle makes 100 billion revenue. It's a really, really large company. So, out of the 100 billion, 10% came from Nespresso. 10 billion. And Nestle in total made about 12 billion euro profit. It's a pretty high profit margin. And from the 12 billion, 8 came from Nespresso. 1/10 of the revenue, 3/4 of the profit from Nespresso. The business model was the innovation. Remember the innovation segments? Profit, business model, completely different, changed business model. This is the main aspect. That's how they made it. And looking at the business model canvas, Nespresso machines are basically sold to the households. They have nothing to do with that, and then they sell the Nespresso tablets. That's where they actually make the money. It's the same customer, because the customer needs to first buy the machine, then he buys the tablets afterwards. And then they make a lot of money, and recurring money, on selling the taps. Importance is here on recurring business model. You don't sell once. Siemens and Krupp's, they sell you the coffee machine and they get one-time money when they sell it. That's it. Nespresso gets money on the lifespan of the coffee machine. Every time you need coffee, they order. And you're kind of hooked to them. Same thing, you remember Apple? You buy Apple and you're hooked to the iTunes model. You buy everything over iTunes and you have to pay them something. You don't even mind. We know that we pay probably too much. We know that Apple is a very profitable company. But it's very easy to use its service, and whether it costs 99 cents or not, who cares? Right? You make things easy for users, and that they honor that. So the business model here is completely shown of how these companies look like. And you can use this very easily with your own project. You put down what are your main value propositions. I would advise you to do this. This is a really cool thing because you explain your business model, your idea on this business model canvas in a half a minute. This is why I think I'm really good. I have my customers identified. I very easily connect to the customers to this channel. My revenue stream is really clear. I make money by doing this and this and that. Cost, all clear. I need to file a patent. I need to, it's all done. It's all in one page, a complete business model. So this is a canvas for a MEDTEC startup, for example, and they just put down these items. And the question was, and I asked my people, how do we make sure that we actually get recurring revenues coming in? How do we make sure that there is money in general coming? How do we actually connect these points? So this is, for example, an example of a genetic testing company. And we then basically formulated the arrows. So we need to understand the clear customer. So in this case, the primary healthcare doctor. We need to have a transaction fee. So for every genetic testing, there is a transaction fee going back to us. And the doctor is the main customer. The doctor basically orders this. The question is, how do we reimburse and maybe give a benefit to the doctor? That's a pretty difficult question. But this is an example of how we can use this business model canvas to actually describe business model and to shape business models. Are you sleeping up there in the back? No. You're full fit, right? Good. So this is the model where this is the typical model. And then we said, well, can we actually come up with a different business model where we have some consumables? We have an espresso model. Do you remember my injector, my contrast media injector? This is an espresso model. Basically what I do is I would give the injector to the people for free. It would roughly run for about 30 to 40 injections. And every time they order 30 or 40 ampules of contrast media injection, they get one of the injectors for free. It doesn't cost me that much. And I have basically hooked them. And then I have an app, and the app says, I scan basically the barcode in, and the app says, you have 17, 20 milliliters left. You have 10, 20 milliliters. I have 5. Should I order again? Yes. Connect to Amazon service. Next day, I get it sent. This is what the value is. The value is not so much in the necessarily first idea, how to connect it with a good business model. Powerful tool. So, connecting both of those. You need to connect the value proposition canvas. So you have the customer assumptions done, jobs to be done, pains and gains, pain relievers, gain creators, the value proposition assumption of your business, of your project. You combine those, go to the doctors again, check on whether that was all right, you assumed. And when you've done that, then we first get up. Sorry, don't know when these things come, right? So what is it? A window. Okay, like one of the windows where you put up the window. Okay. No. No. So give me 2 or 3 more, and then we'll really. What is it?
Hint.
A hint? I don't give you a hint, no. No hint. I'm sure, just to say that, it could have been probably the knob of a drawer, but this is not the case in this one. But you're right, if you look at that, it could have probably been, or maybe the window and maybe the sun outside, I don't know. So, nobody wants to say something more? A drawer? A door. Maybe turned around, right, or something like that, I don't know. All right, I'll give you the resolution. It's a ball that is thrown in the air behind a wall. Fairly simple one, right? But it's so obvious to everybody now. Actually, I jump over this. I should have given you this beforehand. Just a more clear definition of pains and gains. I wanted you guys to actually work on pains and gains and value propositions on our own, that we have an understanding. I give my students typically a fairly clear description on that one. You will all get that with the upload. It's not important for the time being, maybe more important for you when you want to look in that in the future. I also have something from Steve Blank, and I would like, Abhishek, can you do this? I don't know, can you click on this, on the link up there? If that's not the case, then I'll explain it to you. Because now Steve Blank will actually explain the whole process. No. We have to probably copy the link or something. It's only like 2 minutes again, but I like Steve Blank to go through this because he has a very good way of actually explaining the pains, the gains, the value propositions. Just one more time.
There's actually two
Maybe you
more
start all over
important
again. We should
components
start from the.
to value proposition. What gain?
It's not that long. It's not that long.
Value proposition is not something you're building in isolation. While the value proposition is about solving a customer problem or need, it really consists of three components. The easy one for most entrepreneurs to talk about is what product features you have or what product services you're providing. But there's actually two more important components to value proposition. What gain are you creating for customers? And what pain are you solving for them? Alexander Osterwalder, when he drew the business model canvas, really emphasized this. It's not just about your product. And especially if you come from a technical background, it's really easy to see, oh, look at all these features. And if you find yourself doing that, you need to complete the sentence and say, yes, but here's what we make people be able to do better, and here are the problems we solve for them. So the real goal of you figuring out the value proposition is understanding what we call the minimal viable product. You're trying to figure out, now that I kind of understand my product and service and that what I'm gaining for customers and pain I'm solving, what's the smallest possible feature set I could be shipping on day one that solves these pains and creates gains for them? And this really is an interactive process because there's no way, no possible way, sitting in your office, you could figure this out. And the default for great engineers and great entrepreneurs is, oh, I understand customers' problems and needs, so, don't worry about it. We'll just spec the entire product on day one. Your real goal here is to figure out what's the smallest thing you could build and develop that actually get you users or sales or whatever and get out to market as quickly as possible. And so the goal of you getting out of the building for value proposition is understanding gains and pains so you can figure out what's the MVP or minimum viable product.
So I wanted to show that one more time to you to actually also make clear of what the things are you could do this afternoon. Focus on this minimal viable product. Well, focus first on your value proposition, then focus on the minimal viable product. What you would need to do later on is when you have that, then you go out of your building and check it. And not, do a fine-tuning in your lab, but actually verifying it later on when you go out. Very important things. So this was just to re-emphasize one more time what we kind of like discussed for the last couple of days, and something that is the most important thing and probably will also be part of the questions on the test. Right, Abhishek? I'm saying something. Okay, so leads me to some development advice for you in the future, and I think that I will use when is we do lunch 12:45, so that will lead me pretty much to the lunch. And this is also some of the things that I mentioned again are some repeats from the last few days, but also some technical advice. So sometimes when you actually get into a new technology and you combine new technology, you will come up with completely different ideas and different models. It's not always developing a new technologies, but actually applying new technologies. And if you really think back of my first business that I described to you, mobile MRIs, an MRI was around, a mobile was around too, but a mobile MRI was not around. So I actually used two technologies, put them together, and then did something new with it. And I did something where I not provided a product, but I provided a service. So I did not sell mobile MRIs. I actually operated mobile MRIs and drove them around. And then rented them to hospitals or to whoever wanted to have them. I don't really care as long as they had the money. I didn't care what they wanted to do with it. This is a complete new rethinking process where you actually apply technologies and try to do something more with it. Now, the same thing happens here when you actually have faster, cheaper computer power. What does that cost? Let's remember one more time AI. How long is AI around for? Convolutional neural networks, K-nets. How long is the theory behind that already existing? It's about 60 years. So the AI technology is 60 years old. Why did it not work till now? Why is it now coming up? Because now we have the calculation power to do it. The theory about these convolutional networks was already known 50, 60 years ago. But it was a theory, and they could actually play with it, but it would take days. Now, what does it help you to have an AI network work for days if you need a decision now or a fast decision? If you do imaging and you compare imaging, you cannot wait 2 days before you get a result. You need to have it right away. So AI only made the introduction into our lives because now we have the cheap computer power available. And that actually led to all kinds of technologies that would have not been possible without this calculation speed. We cannot do 3D printing. 3D printing is a technology that's around for about 30 years. But it took forever to actually calculate a 3D file, a CAD file, to translate it then into electrical information. It was forever. So now we are much faster with the calculation speed in combination with material sciences and all kinds of other things that allows us to use 3D printing in real life. 3D printing in healthcare would not be anything that would be needed if we would not be able to do a scan of the limb and then maybe do a production of that while that is still open, the surgery. Yeah, do it, produce it, being printed. Not possible at the moment, but if that's possible, then it would really take off, this technology. Virtual reality, augmented reality, all these things are not possible without fast computing. I mean, if you have a class on and then it gives you some augmented reality and you always have to, oh, hold on, the picture's not taken yet, right? It's not helpful. So they will all lead to new business models and things that we cannot foresee at the moment. Or we have with our linear thinking process, are not able to actually see that. So please have these things always, and I can only give that advice from my perspective, try to be very informed about what's going on around you. Try to see what kind of technologies come, and maybe you actually can combine your ideas with some of the technologies that are out there to actually create something really cool. Now, in the 20th century, most of the innovations were actually so-called technological innovations. Technology was driving demand. And a lot of the innovation that we have today that will come up will actually talk about organizational innovation. Meaning also, looking at healthcare, how is healthcare performed at the moment? It's a very simple process. You get sick, you go to a doctor, the doctor sends a prescription or sends you to the hospital. It's an organization, it's a workflow, right? And this workflow will need to be changed and innovated. As we said before, we want to probably, not want to, but we will see prevention. We will see a shift to home care, shift to ambulatory services rather than stationary services. They will require completely new tools. So the the organizational innovation will lead to completely new needs in technological innovation. And now I'm hitting, last time I hit on Siemens, all right? I'm very good friends with a lot of Siemens people, and I like the company a lot. And we're picking on Siemens right now because I'm German and she works there. That's the only reason, right? Except for that, it could be any other big company. Problem with large companies is they fail to innovate because they're great at what they do. They're great at manufacturing MRIs. They're not great at coming up with things that replace the MRI. That's actually typically done by small companies. And they have no actually time to look at that because they are great at other things. And they want to maintain their business model and want to maintain their life. And if they're smart, they also, just like what I told you to do, look left and right continuously, see what's going on, and observe. But don't jump into early, just wait and see. They have enough money to buy the stuff later on. There's something coming, you see that on the right side already? Clayton Christensen, ever heard of Clayton Christensen? If you don't, you should actually Google him as well. He's the one, he's an MIT guy. He came up with the disruptive ideas. So why disruption is better than incremental innovation. So he's basically a business professor. Really interesting guy. And he has said at some point in time that if we want to change healthcare, we need to think disruptive. You remember all these other charts I've given you? I've talked about disruption a lot. Then I threw in this other one where I said, disruption is actually not so good maybe in healthcare because it's slow to adapt. That's why I believe we will have a two-tiered approach. We will have a slow adaptation approach to disruption in the developed world, that's what we call the developed world. So the Europeans and the Americans will actually slowly adapting to disruption. And the developing world, Africa, Asia, will adapt disruption significantly faster because they have a significant higher gain doing this. And there will be, and that will be a chapter that we'll quickly address after lunch, which is called reverse innovation, where I firmly believe that the innovation in the future, particularly disruptive innovation, will come from places like India, not from places like Germany. Because we don't have the same need to do disruption, and we have a lot of resistance against disruption. You have a need for disruption, you will implement it, because you don't have that much hurdles. I mean, look in Africa. When you have no doctors and no healthcare, any type of disruptive healthcare is better than what they have at the moment. In Germany, we have tons of doctors, one doctor for every 300 people in average. You have so many resistance when you would change something because you would affect the life of all these doctors, of all these hospitals, that it's much more difficult to implement. So he believes that innovating at the high end of the market, actually I said I was the last time at Siemens, now I hit one more time on them. Siemens is in the high end of the market. Do you remember this MRI Linac I showed you? Or this PET MRI? Or this is the high end. We are Siemens. We do the high-end stuff. We don't do the low-cost thing. We are the top guys. This is what these big companies do, and that's what not the disruptive innovation is. That's where the incremental innovation is, making things more complicated, more expensive all the time. So if you really want to go and do disruption, the only value proposition that is really valuable is make something dramatically easier and cheaper. And so I would really, and I know cheap is not the only value proposition that you have, but if you think about a device or something where you can save 10 times the cost, 100 times the cost, this is disruption. Saving 10 times the cost is no disruption. And then I give you the advice also for the future that you should, that there's a little bit of ethics included in this one, on this chart. So you start wherever you can start, but normally we have learned in this class that we should start on the need basis. Is there a need? Is there a burning problem? And then we check, can it be done? So we actually make a drawing, we make a plan, we maybe build a prototype. Can it be done? Yeah, it can be done. Is it legal? Is it ethically acceptable? Legal, ethical, acceptable. What if not? Then we don't continue, right? Or maybe you don't want to continue anyway. And then should it be done? Should it be done is another ethical question is, I will actually replace every doctor in the world. Is that really something that we want to happen? Should it be done? So please ask yourself always this question. There's also something included, it's called the dual nature of ethics, right? Of making development. There's always a good part about what you do and a bad part about what you could do. Another advice on digital healthcare. First of all, understand what digital healthcare is. Bertalan Meska, and maybe I'll send this around. I wish I could send you a link to, maybe I do this right now. I'll send you a link from Bertalan Mesko's email I got this morning, the medical futurist. And in this one, he had something on top smart algorithms in healthcare, and he had something else on there, which I thought, what is not digital healthcare video is on there. What is not digital healthcare? Because what people very often think that digital healthcare is digitizing analog processes, rather than taking advantage of what digital technology could introduce into the healthcare flow. So making things available that were not available before. Analyzing diseases that were not available before. Not making an analog process digital. That's not digital healthcare. So I'll forward this to you right now, and then you can forward to everybody else. So done. And you can also use this email as a way to sign up to his newsletter if you want to. I think you can use it as a sign-up process. So digital health companies, they will bring lasting change if they help people in need. So these are the development advices, people in need. Who is in need? Old people, for example, who have nobody to talk to, nobody takes care of them, people who do not have health care at the moment. Include patients in the design. If you actually make something and you are trying to do something for the patient, but you do not include the patient, you will have a problem because patients will not accept it. Remember all the problems you put down for healthcare? You said big problems, patient accepting e-health. Well, it's because you probably have not talked to them yet. You probably have not told them the benefits. You have probably not included them in the design. And it disrupts existing technology. So whenever you have a digital technology that completely changes around the way it's done before, then it's probably a very good one and will help. You should also work with policymakers, or try to work with policymakers, because if you introduce something and the healthcare ministry says that will never be reimbursed, never be used, and I will not accept it, you have a problem. And of course, you should try to communicate things. There's one saying in pretty much all the languages in the world. It says, do good things and talk about it. So if you believe you do something good, why don't you talk about it? Who knows Medium? Nobody knows Medium? Medium is an app where people write articles. And I can also recommend you to sign up for that. It's also free, but it's millions of people writing things and reading things. And Jeff Bezos just wrote the article. I don't know if you read about Jeff Bezos. He was blackmailed by one of the newspapers in the US. And he basically wrote an article in Medium on that one. It's a way to actually spread good information. They have a very good part about healthcare, about AI, medium.com. I think we cut this one. I'll give you that, but I don't want to go into detail on this one. This is just when you are thinking about AI, and everybody thinks about AI these days, right? How many of you do not want to do AI? You don't want to do AI? You're sick and tired of it, or you want to do AI? Okay. So I said, who does not want to do AI, right? So everybody uses AI. That's why I also believe AI will not be a feature anymore where you can highlight and say in marketing, hey, my is AI. Because everybody will use AI. It will be a normal feature, right? You don't say that your device uses electricity. Every device uses electricity. That's not something cool anymore. And AI is cool right now, but I'm sure in 5 or 10 years, it would be uncool if you don't have AI. It's just a normal way. It's kind of like every development will have that included. And if you really have taken care of AI, of getting to know AI, you also will understand it's not that complicated if you really get into it a little bit. And if you really understand how these layers work, how these activation functions work, what the input, the output layers are, how you actually reverse propagate information, it's not that complicated. So do a little course. There's enough programs out there, Udacity, Udemy, where you can learn that relatively free, relatively easy and inexpensive. So I advise everybody, even the future beer brewer, to get into AI, because maybe we'll make some artificial intelligence created beers, right? Also a good idea. Okay, and please think about the healthy longevity people, the people that you will be in 50 years. Show some empathy for them, and make sure that they are actually doing well, and create, because they will take over the world in terms of numbers. There will be more old people than young people in about 30, 40 years, that you actually have the right tools for it. So that's a huge innovation segment. And of course, last one, please do not think complex, think simple. Everything that is complex can be simplified. And if you start off, I know that from my own research part, we start off having all kinds of, we actually do the AI and we do all kinds of programs, so we don't sometimes know exactly how we do it and what we do. And later on, we try to find the scientific explanation of what we have done. We come up with all kinds of formulas, and it all makes sense. But if you really are reasonable about it, you can reduce all these formulas to probably one little thing, or a couple of little things. And as maybe your parents or other people have told you already, the success is typically in making things easier, not making them more complex. The people who are really the most intelligent and come up with the most complex solutions are not the ones who will actually benefit at the end of the day. Needs to be easy to use, because in healthcare we are actually doing things for a doctor, we're doing things for nurses who are not engineers, who are not knowing how to design AI. So we need to make it so they have trust in the device, and it's easy to use. Trust in the device we need to prove beforehand, but if you have no trust in AI, you have a problem, and I would not use it. Should have relatively small footprint, etc., robust, transportable, scalable, all the things we discussed already. And also look at things that are out there already and see whether you can simplify them, decomplexify them, take complexity out. That would be quite innovative, and the advantage of this type of innovation is you know that there's a market already. You know it's there. You know people need it. You know people use it, and they may maybe even use it more if it's a little simpler than has been done before. Okay, I think that's the second to last one. Let me just look what comes next. Yeah, sorry. You see that already? We talk about Elon Musk later on one more time. That's a quick one at the end. All right, so this is my last one, and then we go to lunch. And then we have another, I would say 45 minutes in the afternoon of a little lecture, and then the rest is yours for the project. Are you all ready? Everybody has a laptop with them? Yes? Okay. And you will then probably have some time, and we'll help you that to sort your things and maybe assign jobs. So the decider is asked for again to a certain extent, yeah, or make your own management up, right? But you need to get to a result. And you will all get the same grade. Always remember, you will always get the same grade. So if you have really doing a good job, everybody will get a good grade. And if only 2 of you are good and the rest is bad, you will still get a bad grade. Okay, so last one. We're going back to MRI again. So what is the problem with MRI when you put interventional tools in it? Needles. What is a needle made of? Metal. What does metal cause in an MRI? Huge artifacts. So typically when you have let me draw this up again. Do we have anything to clean this, or? Yeah, so when you have a needle, so this is my body, and you have a needle going in, and this needle has a diameter of, let's say, 1.5 millimeter. You will actually, when you get it into the MRI and you see the body, it will actually be an average of about 15 millimeters. So when you try to hit a target that is 5 millimeters, and you move the needle forward, can somebody tell me when you're over the target now? So what the radiologists typically do, who do this, they assume, that's their thinking process, they assume, well, this is probably the center, right? And if I take this distance here, and I subtract it from here, then this is probably about the center. This is what they do in their brain. And this is very logical. I would do the same thing. So they think, if I don't see the tumor anymore, and that's where it was before, I subtract this distance, right, here as well. So these are the same distances. And this is probably where the needle tip is, because the rest is the artifact. I can tell you that from experience and from testing it out, that's not the case. It's there or there. You don't know. You simply don't know. So what does the radiologist do to get rid of this tumor? He basically takes, instead of this one, he takes this much out, just to be on the safe side. He doesn't know. The really important thing is you need to know where this tip is. If the tip would look like this, an artifact, you wouldn't matter. You don't care about these 15 millimeters. You know, as soon as this thing is here, you are there at your target. So the reason why you have these artifacts is because of the metal they use. Because metal causes, there's eddy currents involved, and there's all kinds of material properties involved. There's diamagnetic, paramagnetic effects involved. So you actually have this huge artifact because of the metal. You reduce this already by using titanium needles. Does anybody know what the disadvantage of titanium needles is? They're very expensive. So a normal needle costs maybe €2. Aspiration needle, the Untitled needle costs 25 or 30 euros. It's a factor 10. But it still would not show 1.5 millimeter, it would show maybe 4 millimeters of artifact. So you get a little better. The only solution for that is you actually get a plastic needle done, or made out of non-metallic material. What is the disadvantage of plastic? It's it's weak, soft, and whatever. So what we have actually tried to work on now, can we turn the light off, please, again? That we've actually combined here, you can unfortunately not read that, we have combined different polymers and have put them over each other. So we have given the front part a higher stiffness than the middle part on the end part. And we basically put four tubes over each other to make it stiff enough. It still is not really as good. This is the stiffness here. It's okay. But if you compare it, the metal one would probably be going up like this, like a hockey stick. So it's still not as good. But the question is it good enough? So the burning problem was we need to have a tool, a device, and a needle that targets the tumor precisely and is visible in the MRI without creating too much artifact. And that's why we created this plastic needle for. If we really get it done, manufactured, it probably costs about also 1 to 2 euros. It's quite inexpensive, but we still need to work on the stiffness. But we have several prototypes built already, and we have companies actually interested in actually licensing this technology. So I hope that we will get some results very soon. Understood again, burning problem, and then went backwards from that. We understand that is an issue. The radiologist worked with that. He said, that's really shit with this artifact, but he still used the needle because he had nothing else available. So analyzing that, you can only find out by actually going there and see them how they work, and they say, that's really awful. We should do something about it. Burning problem. And then go back and create this device. Okay? Lunch. Is that right? Lunch? MTP comes next. MTP is massively transformative process or purpose. And that's where we talk about these guys then later on in a sec. Okay? And then we're done with the lectures for today. So it just gives you more time that we just do lunch quick. So maybe we can be back here in like at 1:45. You should be able to get this done, right? Very good. So almost done with you. So can we get everybody in? Where is everybody? All right, ladies. Because the next ones are very important, because who's not here will not get at least 3 of the questions that are on the test, right? Abhishek, that's what we're going to do, right? In the next 10 minutes, we'll formulate 3 questions. And then whoever's not here is bad luck. Okay, we need to start the beamer. Need to wait till the picture comes up here. I don't know what happened to all these people. Does anybody know? Are they taking a little nap somewhere? You know, what's coming next is actually something that may not have anything directly to do with what we have discussed before, but it's something that I believe is very important, because I want to change your mind too. So everything we do here from a certain perspective is brainwashing. I want to wash your brain. I want to get the Indian stuff out of you, some of it at least. I want to push some international innovation into you. And I want to also give you some ideas of what that means. It means that you have to maybe change a little bit of your thinking process. And you have to change a little bit of your behavior process, and you have to think probably a little bigger than you are willing to do so far. Thinking big is a very important task, and it's a very difficult task. Thinking far ahead, thinking big, don't think small. Don't think 10%, think 100%, 1,000%. Because these could always be used as goals for you. Right? You remember when I said when people have a plan, they can change a plan, but if people don't have a plan, they can't change anything. They basically do whatever is coming. So one of the things that is what I want to talk about is something called MTB, massively transformative process. And this massively transformative process is just a personal goal you could have or something you'd work on, and it really has nothing to do necessarily with creating personal wealth. It's something where you want to be part of changing the world. Now that sounds really silly when I'm sitting here in Bangalore in BMS College of Engineering that I'll talk to you about changing the world. But everyone can change the world. They can at least be part of changing the world. So you can have a goal of trying to prevent poverty in rural India. Making sure that no more kids die, that their child birth rate is being constant and none of the babies is dying anymore. Or you can actually say as a massive transformative process that I want to make sure that everybody in India gets the same type of good quality healthcare. Just as a massive idea. And then you can work. You have to have this little bit in the back of your mind. You don't have to think it all the time. But whatever you do goes towards this goal. So whatever we do here, this is helping to shape my massively transformative process. So what I wanted to do first, I wanted to show you some people that everybody knows. And some people say they are heroes to them, they're examples, good examples. All of them are a little weird, I tell you. All of them have, but I also want to say that weird is not really wrong, it's not really something bad. But they are difficult people. They are very motivated and very clear thinkers, visionary thinkers, very much forward thinkers. And what they all have in common is they have a passion and purpose. They have a massively transformative purpose. They want to do something. They want to change the world. And most of them, I would attest and think they're not trying to change the world for the worse, but for the better. Now that comes in, happening that all of them are billionaires and all of them are really rich now, they don't think they were planning that when they started that. They just they were very passionate about what they were doing. They also tried rapid experimentation. They try things, doesn't work, they drop it. Try something else. And they don't risk their entire fortune and their entire wealth they have on one project. Richard Branson, the one down here, the owner of Virgin Airlines, has also Virgin Galactic. It's the company that shoots rockets, and you can book a flight with them. He does a lot of interesting, he has Virgin Cruises, he has all kinds of little companies, and he has, when you read a little bit about him, he is willing to invest about 20 to 30% of his wealth and of his activity on new projects, but not 100%. He says, I need to make sure that whatever I've built up now is left intact to a certain extent so I can do other things if that fails. Now, Elon Musk is a little different because I know that he has risked about 150% of what he had. With Tesla, to get Tesla started, the starting was not the problem. Starting actually was fairly simple. Growing is what's the problem. And the company has actually never produced any profit. I think last quarter was maybe a slight profit. I'm not entirely sure. And then he came up, after the first profit they had, he said, oh, now I have to fire 50,000 people. That was a really cool news, right? You make profit and then you fire the people. So, but he's completely dedicated and he does all kinds of weird businesses himself again. Or Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, or Larry Page. So these are all, and Jeffrey Bin, those are the guys who did Google. So these are all the guys who really had a huge purpose and a huge enthusiasm. They risk it, they have a long-term thinking process, and they're very optimistic thinkers. They're not negative guys and said, oh, what could go wrong? What would happen if I fail? They basically are very optimistic about it. But, you know, optimistic and risk and share and risk, that goes together. You're optimistic, you try something out, doesn't fail, you're very optimistic, you do the next thing, you try it again. So these are some of the things. You may not find them all in you. I don't find them all in me, to be honest with you. But they don't need to be present all the time, but you just need to see that there's commonalities to people that are successful. Okay, maybe I hope that there's somebody's here, the new Larry Page or the new Jeff Bezos, but let's assume that we all stay normal people. We still need to have a purpose. Now, looking at, again, this one here, Larry Page, Google. Google has innovation principles. I thought it's kind of cool. The company has an innovation principle. I have given all my companies always a mission and a vision and also some innovation principles. I actually will show you I think it's 16 at the moment, innovation principles, my personal ones. And you don't have to use those. Those are not rules. They will also not be in the question. At least my personal ones will not be in the question. They're just important for me. And I would advise you to also, every time you find something that stimulates you, keep it and store it and remember it. And maybe to try to actually come up with your own little innovation motivations. And again, I'll show you mine in a second. So what innovation principles of Google's are: focus on the user. Healthcare, focus on the patient. Focus on yourself. We empathize. That's what Google's principles are as well. It's number 1, by the way. Open will win. So they basically say, if we make a closed loop and we are very secret about what we do and we don't share our code and we don't share access, we will not win. Because Google's principle is based on having many, 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 many users. You cannot have users if you don't make it open. Open is the key. Ideas come from everywhere, not only from inside. That's where's my Siemens lady? I promise you all the time I stop with Siemens and I don't stop. Siemens believes, and there's a lot of other companies who believe that, this not invented here syndrome. Ever heard of that one? Siemens people have a very strong belief, if it doesn't come from us, it can't be good. It's a not invented here syndrome. A lot of big companies have that. They don't like to look outside because they say, hey, we have the best engineers. The best things can't come from us. Google is very open about that. Think big, start small. What is the way to think big and start small? Minimal viable products. That's because you have a plan what you will happen with this minimal viable. There will be a bigger product, right? You have a vision for something really big, but you need to start small to actually prove your point. Now, what we have discussed yesterday was the design sprint. The design sprint came from Jay Knapp from Google Ventures. So he basically came up with that to actually come up with ways to start small but still have a big vision. Never fail to fail. So never stop failing. Failing is not a bad thing. Failing is a good thing. spark with imagination, fuel with data. So it's Google, right? So Google is a company that lives from data. So they need to create data and they need to actually do something with the data. 7, be a platform, float all boats. Be a platform. You are basically the one that everybody has to go to. But if you have little side chips that create extra value, you just spin them off. And make it matter. It needs to be important. If it's not important, and if it doesn't matter to anybody, drop it. Not worth it. Now, again, don't copy those. I just wanted to show you with this one that these companies, they are highly successful companies. They are thinking like small companies. Google is, I don't know exactly know how many employees Google has. Doesn't anybody know? I think it's close to 50,000 or 100,000. I don't know. It's a lot. This is a big company. It's a really huge company. They're everywhere in the whole world. They have subsidiaries. But they think like a small company. And they act a little bit like a small company too. They have internal teams. They create internal minimal viable products. And then they show it. They test it. They have like a little bit more authority than you have in some other big companies. So let's go on to the massively transformative purpose. So at the end of the day, I was coming from something from Peter Diamandis again, who wrote The Abundance and the Bold book. Find something you would die for and live for it. It's kind of like his definition. So what is something that you really would love to do? Like, I'll go to my son. He would love to actually create the beer that everybody likes, even in India. Work on it. Convince everybody. Maybe make it even a little bigger. Provide, a healthy, nutritious, beer-based product for everybody in the world for low cost. Could even be bigger than that, right? Have a plan for your life. Nobody says that this plan cannot be changed and this purpose cannot be changed. You can also have 3 purposes if you want to. So one of my purposes, I can share that with you, one of my purposes was, and that I really started working on that a long time ago, that I wanted to create a really low-cost diagnostic equipment system that is portable and that is available for just everybody in the rural area in Africa or in the world for that matter. And it should cost less than $500, and it should be everybody should be able to have it in a larger community hall, in a church, in whatever, where people get together. And it should be so easy to use that you just push a button and get information out of it. So that people have the access everywhere, wherever they are. You have it maybe in a shopping mall. If you need to check yourself pretty quick, you just push a button. So that's kind of like what I'm thinking of, and that's what I'm trying to actually combine. I have some examples later on, again, which go towards this direction. So find yourself a massively transformative purpose and process. And some of the key attributes of that one, it's uniquely yours. It's your plan. It's not your neighbor's plan. It's your plan. Now, if your neighbor seems to have the same plan, who cares? But it's just for you. You are very welcome to share it, though, but it's something that you are actually living and dying for. It completely inspires you. So every time you read something, and that's what happens to me, that's why I'm signed up to all these blogs and information channels. Every time I see a keyword, I read it, I store it, save it, and I just try to get inspired and try to see, does it help my purpose? It's neither narrow nor even technology specific. What I just told you it was not narrow, it's pretty wide with the diagnostic one, and I did not tell you what technology I use. Because if I tell you I want to have an ultrasound based, then I limit myself to ultrasound. What if something else comes along that is much better than ultrasound in 5 years? So be open on that one. Use whatever's the best. Okay, aimed at the heart and the mind. So you should be stimulating your mind, but it should also come from the heart. Well, it's not the money that drives you, it's your heart that drives you. And lastly, declared with sincerity and confidence. So when people tell you and they say, why are you doing this? It's kind of like a stupid way. You need to argue that this is what I believe in, that's what I want to do, and please leave me alone. So, MTPs. I copied some, I found some. Google's MTP is organize the world's information. It's pretty broad, isn't it? TED Talks, ideas worth spreading. You see that every time you see a TED work, it says ideas worth spreading. So we are actually focusing, that's how we want to gather the ideas, find the ideas, and then have everybody participate. Everybody should be able to share them. Everybody should be able to actually listen to these ideas. Singularity University, which is also Peter Diamandis is a founder of, says positively impacting the lives of 1 billion people. I'm not sure why he limited it to 1 billion people, not 5 or 10 billion people. But that's the purpose of the Singularity University. Have your own one. Don't have to have one right now. Think about it. And just have it in your mind that maybe every once in a while you should not be driven by working for Siemens and doing what they tell you, but actually thinking about what you can do. And then we get to that, when we talk about MTPs, we also talked about moonshots. Remember moonshots? So the moonshot was when we have a goal that nobody has a clue of how to reach it. It's so unreachable at the moment that you can't even imagine how to get to. Now, having goals that are completely unreachable make you think from the scratch, from the beginning. You cannot use necessarily what is already around. You cannot try to improve this because it will never make you get to where you want to go if you don't even know how to get to. This is also another word for 10 times thinking. So what I'm trying to tell my students all the time is that they should never think 10%, but always 10 times. Now, one of my colleagues have PhD students, and they do CT reconstruction algorithms. And the goal of their PhD thesis is to make the CT reconstruction algorithm to create a 10% higher signal-to-noise ratio. This is a very complicated algorithmic process. It's very, very much into what a PhD could do. But is that really challenging? Is that really something that where you say, well, I have done a really good PhD. I made 10% more signal-to-noise ratio. And then you say, ooh. Now, it's definitely good enough for a PhD thesis, and there's very scientific work. But is it something that stimulates you personally? Don't you want to do something really big? Then think big, too. So you can have more than one moonshot, but also from a project perspective, think about how you can do things really 10 times better, 10 times less expensive, 10 times more efficient rather than the 10% thinking. Everybody in this room typically thinks 10%. Now, if your company tells you that you should think 10%, maybe you should, but on the side, please also think about the 10, is there a 10%, a 10 times approach as well? So, for example, human longevity. This is a company, I think mentioned that before too. They want to expand the lifespan, and they have all kinds of interesting approaches on how to do that. Diet, gene therapy, clear imaging, all kinds of other things. And there's a lot of very promising results. And they want to make the 120 the new 60. So I will be 60 in 5 years, and I basically will stay the next 6 years the same, right? Because 120 will be the new 60. And then when people would have died with 80, I will die with 140, all right? I can live with that, actually. I can live with that thinking process. And I think that's a good thinking process. Why would anybody, is anybody here who wants to die early? No? Surprised. Of course not. We all want to stay healthy. We don't want to die early. And that's a pretty damn good goal. I like that. I would support them. So what is your moonshot? And when you have a moonshot, what you should do is you should actually say, well, this is my ultimate goal. I want to reach that in 10 years. What do I have to do now to get there? So what is my plan for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and then the final moonshot? What do I have to get done to get there? It's kind of like doing a little process plan. And think about this exponential curve again, because sometimes it will happen, you will not get much done till the end, and then it goes really quick. Now, I'm not going to give you any examples. This last part of the lecture before you're really finished is just trying to maybe seed some plans. You know, we talked about seed investment, seed financing. Now I want to put some seeds in your brain that may change your thinking process. So, normally what you would do with the Moon goal, you would have a 5-year goal. So this is like a little recipe of how to get to this. So what's your 5-year goal? Moonshot goal. And then based on that, you have a first-year goal. What would you reach in the first year? So 5 years way out there, but what do you want to do in the first year? And then you crunch it further down. If this is your first year, what's the 30-day goal? You already get the point, right? And then at some point in time, you need to have a little bit of a proof, maybe through minimal viable products, of how that you make people believe that this moonshot is actually possible. And then also think about what single action can you take right now to make immediate progress. This is what I think also when I tell my PhD students, when they get stuck, I say, why don't you think about one thing that puts you a little bit forward? Not necessarily forward with respect to your final PhD, but which step can you take now that shows you you're on the right track? Just a little step. And this is how you can actually manage projects, manage your life, by the way, and manage your moonshots. Okay, having said that, so now we're getting really to the end. So I'm going to give you my Michael's laws of innovation. Michael's me, by the way, right? And I stole, and that you're absolutely welcome to steal my innovation laws, because I stole part of them from Peter Diamandis and part of them from some other people, and part of them I developed myself. So a lot of these things are stolen, right? I'm a thief. But no problem, these are personal ones, it doesn't really matter, right? So steal my innovation laws, I'm really happy with that. So I have altogether, I think, 18, 19 in the meantime, they're always adding. But there's some ones that I believe are cooler than others. And the ones that are cooler than others, I just highlight, but I give it to you all. The faster you move, the slower time passes, and the longer you live. Think about this for a second. Which means the more you get done in a certain amount of time, the more you actually have achieved. So the longer your life was. People who don't move at all will not get anything done, and their life is going to be short with respect to content. The best way to predict the future is to create it yourself, instead of having somebody else telling you what the future will like. Fail early, fast, fail often, fail forward, and do not be afraid of failing. I think that's something we have to get into everybody, that failing is not a bad thing. When given a choice, take both. That's my favorite one, actually. So what should we do, this one or that one? Do it both. Why shouldn't you do both? People always tell you should concentrate on one thing and finish this up, but what is there's a different short opportunity and you can check, why not do them both? I don't like this having this label thing that you have to do one or the other, that's digital. Why not do both? Okay, then you can read the other ones. Multiple projects can lead to multiple successes. I think they make some sense to a lot of people. Experts are people, so this is really cool. I showed that to you at the end because I'm supposed to be an expert here, right? Telling you something. All right, experts are people that tell you things that cannot be done. Now, I hope you don't get me that way, but when you are actually going and would propose this project to somebody, what would be the first reaction? They would not say, well done, cool, go forward. They said, ha, will never work. Will never work because this and this and that. This is what experts tell you. They know exactly why it doesn't work, but they don't know why it should work. And that's the typical thinking process. And that's what everybody likes to do. They like to criticize, right? Or maybe you look at yourself. I know why this does not work. This is a stupid idea. What if it works? Why should it not work? Ask that question. Okay, then going a little bit further down, it is difficult to be an innovator without being an explorer. I think we have gotten this trip. You need to do experiments. You need to go forward. You need to explore. Because remember this cake? I don't know what I don't know. This is what you need to explore. And you cannot be innovative without actually getting out of your room, opening the door, and listening to what people say and going to your customers. Don't expect to find the answers, but start to ask the right questions. The answers are not laying on the road. You may have to ask the right questions to actually come to the answers. And you remember also the time when we said, you may ask people a question, and you may get an answer, but that answer may not be sincere, and it may not be, now I'm not saying they lie, but it may not be the real, honest truth. And maybe they don't even know the answer, but they're too afraid to actually tell you that they don't know the answer. They give you some weird answer. And speed is the critical currency. Please do not forget, and that's actually one of the reasons why I hope that helped you too a little bit this class, that you have to do rapid innovations. You have to check things rapid. You have to experiment. You cannot necessarily do things for 3 years without being somewhat sure that it actually works at the end of the time. And you need to be fast, because if there's 40 people sitting in this room, there may be somewhere else in the world sitting another 40 people with similar ideas than yours. And sometimes speed counts. Patents. The date counts. Speed is important. So think again about my capacitor that I drew. Sometimes it's good enough to know 90% or 80%. You develop the other percentage, or you actually learn something, rather than trying to be too, I need to know more. I need to know. I cannot get started. I need to know more. And you will never get started. Somebody else has done it already. Done. By the way, that also goes for PhDs or for publications. You know that too. You know, one of my PhD students was working on a very nice journal paper. It was a review paper, right? It was not the real science, but it was actually trying to review all the things that have been done in a certain area to actually argue why we are not doing something different. And he was about finished, and the paper was published by somebody else. So what can he do with the paper? Whoosh, tear it apart. I'm not saying that you should jeopardize quality on this one. That's also difficult. But when you get things done, then really get them done. Now, also, I did not put this in my innovation things, but when I am very enthusiastic about certain things, I sit down and I work through the night. I just get it done. And rather than waiting again and then getting yourself into the modus, sometimes it's better to get things really done and just hook it. Yeah, done. And then sleep 2 days, for all that matters. But once you are actually moving at certain things, why shouldn't you finish? Why should you be bound to a 9 to 5 timeline? Okay, and last but not least, some predictions for the future. Also, to a large extent, stolen. So, 2018, those are very difficult for some of you to read. Quantum supremacy achieved. That was actually done in 2017, or was it 2018? I don't remember. I think 2017 or 18. And it really happened in 2018. Now, you remember that cone of future, the cone and the uncertainty? Of course, everything that is close to us, we have somewhat of a fairly good understanding it will happen. And everything that is, the further out it goes, the larger the uncertainty will get. Clear, right? So what Peter Diamandis says, that's why I thought really, so there's all kinds of other things coming, flying car operations, I'm not sure about that. 5G network, I think we're pretty sure that some of that will come in 2020. 2020 is when? Next year, not that far, right? So let's look at a couple of other ones. Private human mission have launched for the surface of Mars. Not entirely sure about that one either, but Elon Musk believes in this. And let's go on. Solar and wind 2028 represent nearly 100% of new electricity generation. I can believe that, actually. I mean, looking at what happens in Germany, I can believe that. Problem with that is we still need to solve the problem with the storage of the energy. Not sure on whether we're there yet. But what I thought was pretty cool with respect to us, read the top part for 2030. It says, humanity has achieved longevity escape velocity. I will tell you in a second what that means, longevity escape velocity, for the wealthiest. So the wealthiest will be able to buy themselves time. Because technology will be so fast changing that by every year, that's what the definition of longevity escape velocity means. I live 1 year longer, technology has provided me with 1.2 years of extra life. You got it? You are actually moving, the technology is moving faster than you age. Now, that doesn't mean you will live forever. There's still going to be an end to it, but it's like a cool thinking process. And I believe there's some truth to that, because having all the data points available, being able to shift a lot of the things into the preventive modus, and being able to actually have a pill maybe before things happen, because we know that the gene problem is there, that I can believe that that happens for the wealthiest in 2030, because, of course, you remember the 60s, disappointment phase, right? And then there's a disruption phase, and then it's going to be really expensive before it gets cheaper and democratizes later on. But in 2032, or in 2036, I think it's the next one, longevity treatments will be available for everyone, because they have now gotten cheaper. So that's what they predict. That's hope. 2036 is 18 years, 17 years from now. Yeah. So what is the goal? We all need to live at least another 17 years, right? So stay alive, okay? It's a very important goal for the next time. All right. Anyway, it's kind of cool to have this, and I'd be very, very interested to see in 2038, because I will be still about 60, because remember, longevity escape velocity, I will still be the same age, approximately. I will look back and see whether they were right. Those are not my predictions. And, but I was cool to actually throw it up here, because there's a lot of people who call themselves futurists and deal with this. Now, what I would ask you to do is to get your own realistic approach in there, to say for yourself what you believe. And knowing, I hope that's also something that helped you, being a little bit more exponential thinking is not necessarily wrong. Okay? This one I throw up there. We will not go into detail on these ones. I just help them. I just put them up there for you in the future. If you ever plan on doing something, you can have a strategy in one sentence, which helps you, like what to win, where to play, and you can actually formulate sentences out of it. So you will find this in the upload notes, but will not. It's just a little support for you. So that one was defined, right? So with that, the most important goal is to stay alive. And the only thing I have left now is, because we are in India, and I think it's a very important topic, I will give you a 10-minute thing or 15-minute thing on reverse innovation. Does anybody know what reverse innovation is? Oh, first of all, this one. All right, Donnie, get up. See, you now see really, I don't know when they come, because I just throw them in and I have no idea. So, what is it? What is it? A snowball. Wrong. You need a tip? Yeah. See this little thing there? What is it? Who? Who's rolling with the ball? Small creature, huh? It's an ant. It's run over by a... Okay? All right, so last ones, and then we are really done. Next 10 minutes is reverse innovation. I have actually mentioned reverse innovation before. Does anybody remember what I meant by that? Correct. Well, it's not, but you're on the right track. Basically what it means is that if you look back in the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, where did innovation come from? It mainly came from Europe, the United States, Japan, right? Now, where does innovation come now? Still from these places, plus China, right? India, don't know, but let's say there's lots of innovation coming from here. And what is that innovation based on? Technology, but it's based on the needs of the Europeans, the Americans, and the Japanese. And in all honesty, not based on the needs of the Indians, because we don't care about you. And you probably don't care about us either, so that's okay. But at the end of the day, when we designed innovation, we designed them for the Europeans. We did not really think about the Indians. Now, there's nothing, you get the point, it's nothing bad. It's just because everybody is closer to themselves, right, than to somebody else. So the Germans developed technology mainly for the market that could afford the cool German technology. And India was not the market that could afford the cool German technology. So what did you guys get? You got the old German equipment. So in the healthcare field, when the CT scanner was replaced in Germany with a new one, the old one was sold to India. Yeah, it's a fact, that's what happened. Now, what was the problem with the old CT in India? It was still too complicated because you had no people who use it and no people to fix it, and you had no spare parts. There was nothing around. Really stupid, right? I mean, it was clever from the Europeans to sell it to you. It was not so clever to install it here. Now, did you really need CT scanners in India? Let's not use India anymore because you're way too advanced in the meantime. Let's use North Sudan. Anybody know where North Sudan is? South of Egypt. It's a Nile country. It's in the middle of not a very rich country. So, what do they need? Do they need CT scanners? Yeah, maybe some, but they mainly need X-ray systems because they don't even have X-ray systems. Do we really care about X-ray systems to Sudan? No. So what I'm trying to get is that countries have to develop for their own needs and don't take the second order equipment from the Europeans or the third one, because most of these countries are not able to support this high-end equipment, this high-end technology, because it's too complicated and still too expensive. But you need completely other devices. Maybe one quick other example. 5-6 years ago, I went to Dubai, or 10 years, probably was 10 years ago. And at that time, I actually had a MRI center started in Germany, which did full body scanning, like full body, and then we looked at everything, and it was really cool. The patients could say, well, do we have any colon problems or not? And I thought, oh, Dubai is a rich country. Go there. They probably need that too. So I went to the Ministry of Health, or not the ministry, some guy below them, and said, I'm going to invest in your country. And he said, we have tons of MRIs. We don't need any other MRIs. What we need is expertise of actually running these things. The other thing we need is we have diabetes. We have a lot more diabetes than you guys have in Europe. Diabetes is a problem in Europe, but not a bigger problem because we have changed diet now, so it's all okay. In Dubai, has anybody been in Dubai? So if you see Dubai, you will see a lot of people who are extremely fat. Why are they fat? Well, they don't move anymore. They have a fancy car with a chauffeur maybe, right? And the main thing is they have switched their diet. Instead of eating what they used to eat 30, 40 years ago, they now eat McDonald's. And they didn't adjust their lifestyle to that food. And the amount of diabetes is significantly higher. So what Dubai should invest in, rather than in MRIs, is investing in how can we treat diabetes, and even better, how can we prevent diabetes from happening. So he said, get lost, get me something for diabetes. And the same thing I want to say to you is like, whenever you find this burning problem in India, try to find a solution for India, and maybe even better within India. Because you have so many cool people here, production capabilities, why should you not be able to do it? Now, where's the reverse innovation part coming from now? Reverse innovation means that you have developed something that is really good and needed for your country. Do you believe that it really is not needed anywhere else? What if you would decide to build a low-cost CT scanner? I showed you an example of this one. For 10,000 euros, and you want to equip every hospital or every healthcare center in India with that, and it turns out that this thing is really good. Don't you believe that the Germans will not need this as well? This is the reverse innovation part. You develop something for your needs, and then you actually prove a point, and then you export it to other places. Because we don't need it in Germany at the moment. At least we believe we don't need it. But if you come up and produce something that is 10 times cheaper, and produces good quality, we may say, oh, that's actually not bad. Why don't we have that here? So this is what I showed in this little chart. So I think I have explained everything. That's why I don't have to go through in detail anymore. This is the typical way it used to work. And we need to actually go the other way around, that you are developing things for your own market with the intention to actually, at some point in time, export it to other places. India, from a structural point of view, is very close to China. I mean, similar income, similar structures. There's a lot of other places, they would need what you produce. They have probably similar problems. Maybe also all the African countries, which we in Germany don't care about. We don't do anything for them. Reverse innovation. And now, really the last time for Siemens, companies like Siemens, Philips, and GE, they're investing in China. They have people here. And they have not only people here, they have also production capabilities. They produce things. They produce CT scanners. And the CT scanners they produce are made for the Indian market. They're significantly smaller, cheaper, and less complex than the ones you would sell in Europe. Now, Siemens has another facility in China where they produce, it's a CT scanner called Force, a very cheap one. That's the one they export back to Europe. Because in Europe, there seems to be a market for that now, too. So I think you have a unique advantage here, and I'm going to implant that, too, into your bodies and into your brains. You guys can do something not only for India, you can also do it for the outside world. But you need to get moving, you need to think differently. I think the only difference that we have in Europe, between Europe and or US and Europe and India is that we think maybe a little bit more open and a little more advanced and a little more adventurous and a little more, I don't know, we are accepting failure. We are maybe willing to start. And you need to also think about ways to start and not to think only about a secure job. Okay, last one. This is also a little bit of a cheap example of a diagnostic equipment. So what we actually found out is that when you do central lymph nodes, you know what central lymph nodes and what they are? So for example, if you have a breast tumor, the tumor normally drains through the lymph system. It's supported by a lymph system. And there's lymph nodes attached to the tumor. And the central lymph node is called the first lymph node that is connected to the tumor. And to avoid tumor cells from spreading, you should analyze on whether the lymph system has already been infected by the tumor cells or not. So you need to identify that first and then take it out. Now, there's a big problem because you actually may find all kinds of lymph nodes, but you don't know which one is the first one to use, which one is the first one that drains from the tumor. So it's what they normally do, the surgeons then, they cut it open. They cut it open, and then they look at the lymph nodes, and then they take all the lymph nodes out, rather than only one, just to be on the safe side that they took the central lymph node out. What happens to the woman is she has lymph problems, and the lymph drainage is not working anymore. You may have seen this with people who had breast cancer. They get thick arms because the lymph system doesn't work anymore. So it's not really good. So the burning problem is that you want to reduce the impact of the surgery on the woman. You want to actually make sure that you only take the lymph node out that is the central lymph node rather than the entire lymphatic system. And for that, you need to identify the central lymph node. And you can only do that with nuclear medicine, with a gamma camera. So you basically inject a nuclear dye, and the nuclear dye distributes first to the central lymph node, stays there, and then you can image it. The gamma camera, however, has a big problem that it's a very shitty shitty resolution. It's like a 4 or 5 millimeter resolution. If two lymph nodes lay next to each other or three, you can't distinguish them. So you need to have an ultrasound system maybe to be able to have a high anatomical imaging system. So the combination of an ultrasound with a gamma camera would be really cool for doing this, identifying this, but you need two hands. Gamma camera and then ultrasound, and you never find it either. Then what are you going to do with your needle? Where are you going to put your needle? You have no third hand. So you need to put this together. So that's what we did here. This one is basically the gamma camera. This one here, the gamma camera. And then we actually have an ultrasound transducer, we put a mirror on it. So basically the ultrasound waves are mirrored into the body and put some from the side, mirrored, go 90% down, and the mirror is an ultrasound. It's not a real mirror, right? It's basically a copper plate which reflects the ultrasound waves. And they go 90%, 90 degrees down, and they are exactly at the same imaging plane than the gamma camera. So now you have ultrasound imaging and gamma imaging at the same imaging plane. Now we can attach maybe even a needle probe to that, and you can take the biopsy from that central lymph node. Burning problem? Clear? Wanted to reduce the effect of the surgery, wanted to actually be able to find that central lymph node clear, and now we combine these two systems. And actually, this is again one of these minimal viable products and one of these renderings. So if you can't make it, then fake it, right? But we have actually built it. It doesn't look like that. It's much bigger and much bulkier. But this is our vision. That's what it should look like, and we probably have that ready in the next half year, I would think. Okay, so that's it. I'm done. Homework assignment is, of course, no homework assignment, because I would advise you to do this right now. Right? Then you have done it, because otherwise you will not be able to put it together. I will take this. I have another one for tomorrow where I ask you to do this, but we'll take this out. We'll do it right now. I would suggest you do it right now. And then you have all the 5 days together. Yeah? So that one is done. And next one, you create, oh, sorry, I was at the wrong one here. Homework assignment, present, okay, I think this is something, I may have said that yesterday already, didn't I? I think so. All right, that's something maybe you want to put on your part of your project. I would also advise you to think about maybe this business model canvas, just to have a little direction to see how you would envision that the whole thing would work at the end of the day. That's your vision you put on. Okay, this is the homework assignment. That's what I was referring to. I would advise you to do it right now. Then you have done it for all the 5 days. One more time to the project. So document everything, but don't document unnecessary thing. Maybe you want to do some pictures, drawings, all fine by me. Then you should try to come up with an elevator pitch in one way or form or another. The elevator pitch I would do at the end. When you have all together, you have your value proposition canvas defined, you have your business model maybe defined. Then you come up with like a cool way of describing your product, process, idea in one sentence. Then, Chris, you should, at the end of the day, create a presentation and a documentation. I have no expectations on the length of this. I think you should be easily getting 10 pages out of this. But you know, if you only get 5 out of it, you get 15. I don't really care. You know, it's done for you. Okay, we will grade it, but more like the presentation tomorrow. But the documentation is something for you. Okay, you should have, obviously, should contain the title. You should send Abhishek the title too, so we know the projects. You should have the contributors included, so who was participating in this. And please do not put anybody on who is not participating. So maybe some friends who were not here all the time, do not put them on. We'll find it out anyway. Okay, just an idea, what should be or could be part of it is the user story, value proposition canvas, your prioritizations you did, a blue ocean idea. You don't have to do that in that order. You can do whatever you want. I gave you enough innovation tools. Maybe like how would you validate it? What kind of iterations can you do? What are the conceptual ideas? You have some drawings or something else. Maybe you create something. You create some other form of prototype. And then we would like you guys to present it tomorrow in about a 10-minute presentation. We talked about this too, just not one person, maybe 2 or 3. 10 minutes go by pretty quickly. So in average, you would say 1 slide per minute, roughly. So 12 is probably okay too, or 13, but if you get significantly less, you will be also faster. And you should expect to be called upon at around 10:30, right? So 9:30 we start. 10:30 is when I'm done with my last stuff. I'm probably done before that. But and then you basically assume you can start it, and I think we draw. We just make it up, right? Whatever comes first or second. So nobody believes that we prefer anybody here. And then you will present. I would please ask all of you, everyone here who's not presenting is jury. So you will ask questions, comment, maybe give some feedback, right? So we calculate about another 5 minutes in for questions and answers. That's very important because the questions show that you're involved and the answers show that you actually are enthusiastic about your project and have gotten yourself involved in it. Okay? All clear? The plan? Okay. What? 10 minutes is 10 minutes, that's right. So 10 minutes is right when the small, the large finger of the clock goes down 10 times, right? That's 10 minutes. And but we still have 5 minutes, I think, after each one Q&A. So that means 6 times 15 is 90, right? So now 1.5 hours. So if we start 10:30, we should be done by like around 12, plus minus 20 minutes, something like that. And then Abhishek came up with a very tough test, very difficult one. We're still working on some of the tough questions. Danny will check him for you. He was not here. So if he passes, then it's easy. If he doesn't pass, then it's probably okay, right? Because that should be the case. And then we're done by, I would say, latest 1 o'clock tomorrow. Okay, and then you're welcome to either go to lunch or to go home. Are they going to get certificates? Are they going to get certificates?
Yes.
Tomorrow?
Only participation. Grade cards later.
Okay, so the participation they get tonight or they get?
Grade cards.
No, the grade cards they get later, right?
Next week.
Okay. I think do I have to sign those? I still have to sign something, right? Oh, okay, so I have to sign. Okay, so we should be done by 1. Is that all? Is that okay with everybody? Yes? And everybody knows what to do? So you have from now on time for your group. Organize it, spend it well. When do you have to go from here? One more slide. Oh, sorry, one more slide. The slide is, of course, the time is wrong now because we started 9:30. So please send everything to me and Abhishek in CC, your presentation and your documentation by 9:15 latest tomorrow. 9:29, okay? Right before. Also send the summary of the summaries, of your day summaries with your group name. So I'll put your group name on. You can also think, just to give you an idea, you can think about a cool name, a cool logo, all these kind of things that make things significantly more attractive. Okay, I think that's all there is. And if you have questions on anything, you can come. Questions on how much money do I make when I'm an engineer for 10 years, or do I have a PhD? Do you have a PhD position for me, or something like that? Or can I do a whatever you want to ask? Okay. It's like, how many kids do you have? How many cars do you drive? I don't have to answer them. You can ask them. You can ask anything. I can just say get lost. I don't answer that, but you can ask anything. Okay, and you can do this now till about 6:30, 6 o'clock when we go to dinner. Do they go from here? Do they know where it is?
Same place.
Over there. Very difficult to find, right? So we know where it is. So I will stay around here, and so I will go look around what you do and how you work, and I hope you will get a good result. Okay, see you later on. You made it day 5. Actually, that means you made it, pretty much. Okay?